The sun was hanging low when Anna first saw the man by the side of the trail, crouched near her broken wagon wheel with dust on his shirt and a wrench in his hand. She didn't know his name, didn't know what kind of man he was. But after a week of traveling alone, with every creak of the wagon sounding like danger, she knew better than to ask too many questions. Her hands were blistered from handling the reins, her throat dry from wind and silence. The man didn't smile, just looked up once through the brim of his hat, then got back to work. She stood a few steps away, one hand resting lightly on the butt of the old rifle strapped under the wagon bench. He hadn't asked if she needed help, just started working like fixing things was the only way he knew how to speak. His horse stood tied nearby, quiet and alert, as if waiting for something to go wrong. Anna watched him, unsure, not afraid exactly, but not at ease either. You didn't get far out here without learning to listen to your gut, and hers was caught somewhere between warning and hope. It had been 4 days since the axle cracked. She kept moving slow, praying the wheel would hold until she could find a town, a fence line, even a stranger. Then this man showed up like he'd stepped out of the dust itself. She'd been raised with brothers, 4 of them, rough men who taught her how to shoot before she learned how to read. So when she left knowing how to survive. But surviving didn't mean trusting anyone. And it sure didn't mean depending on the kindness of man. Still, she didn't stop him, didn't tell him to go. There was something quiet about him, something heavy. He didn't fidget or look around nervously like men with bad intentions often did. His hands were steady. His eyes only lifted to hers once. And when they did, they didn't linger. She could feel the exhaustion in her bones. And even as she stayed alert, she was so deeply tired of being alone. "You're headed west?" he asked finally, his voice rough and low. She nodded. "Cody," he gave a quiet grunt. "This road's hard. Ain't much water till you hit the river fork." "I know. Wagon won't make it without this fix." "I know that too." He nodded once and returned to tightening the bolts like her short answers hadn't put him off. She watched his hands again. Big, sunburned, and calloused. Not a drifter's hands. Not a man running from something. A working man, maybe a ranch hand, maybe someone who once had something solid and lost it. Anna didn't ask. She wasn't ready to offer anything of hers in return. She hadn't told anyone she was coming. Not her brothers. Not even the widow she'd boarded with back in Nebraska. She'd just left one morning, packed her things in silence, and walked out of the only rented room she'd ever called her own. She had no plan but west, no promise waiting for her except the one she whispered to herself every night. You don't belong to anyone anymore. Not to the man who left, not to the man who stayed, not even to the past. He finished tightening the last bolt and stood. She noticed then that he walked with a slight limp, like an old wound had healed wrong. He stretched his back and looked at the wheel. "It'll hold, but you'll need to ride easy over the rocks." She nodded again. "Thanks." He dusted his hands on his pants. "Name's Caleb." And it didn't offer hers. But after a pause, something in her loosened. "Anna." He gave a slight nod like he'd already guessed. Then he turned toward his horse. She thought he was leaving. Maybe he would have. But just as he grabbed the reins, they both heard it. The sound came from a ridge, a low hum of hooves, faint but growing. Anna's chest tightened. She turned, already knowing before she saw them. The dust trail in the distance. The way it split the golden brush. Her stomach sank. Her brothers. There were only 3 now. The 4th, Joseph, had died last winter in a mining accident in Colorado. The 3 remaining were alive and mean as ever. Jed, Tom, and Andrew. They weren't men who smiled much. And if they were riding this way, they weren't coming to say hello. Caleb looked at her, his eyes sharper now. "Friends." Anna shook her head slowly. "Family." He didn't ask more, just stepped closer to the wagon, slipping his hand toward the rifle tied to his saddle. Anna's breath caught. Her heart thudded hard at her chest. She hadn't told them where she was going, hadn't sent word. They must have tracked her, and if they had, it meant something bad was coming. They never did anything without a reason. The riders came closer, slowing as they reached the wagon. Jed was in front, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat tipped low and his mustache as sharp as ever. Tom rode beside him, chewing a matchstick like always. Andrew brought up the rear, younger but with a darker fire in his eyes. Jed reined in first. "Anna," he said like it was a question, but not the kind that needed answering. "Jed," she said evenly. He looked past her to Caleb. "Who's this?" She didn't flinch. He fixed the wagon. Jed's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's so." Caleb said nothing. Tom spit the matchstick into the dirt. "You running off to find land or running from someone, sis?" "I'm not running," she said. "I'm leaving." Jed nodded slow. "Well, Pa's dead. Figured you ought to know." Anna blinked. She hadn't known. Hadn't even considered it. Her throat went dry. "When?" "Last week. Buried him ourselves. You weren't around." "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Andrew said from behind. She stood taller. "I had my reasons." Jed climbed down from his horse. His boots crunched the dirt as he stepped forward. "You always got reasons. Mama's gone. Now Pa's gone. That just leaves us. You think we're going to let our little sister wander off alone like some stray dog?" Anna stiffened. "You don't get to decide where I go." Jed stopped a few feet away. "Maybe not. But we brought something. Thought you ought to see it." She hesitated. "What?" Jed reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a folded paper. "Old, worn." He handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly, her hand shaking. Her name was at the top. It was a deed. A land deed. One she'd signed once, years ago, when she was too tired to read the fine print. It was supposed to mean freedom. Now it meant something else. "This says you own nothing," Jed said softly. "That cabin? That acre you've been dreaming of? Pa signed it over before he died. To us." Anna stared at the paper, her vision blurring. Caleb stepped forward slightly, not speaking, just standing close. Jed glanced at him. "You gonna be a problem, mister?" Caleb's voice was calm. "Only if you give me reason." Tom snorted, amused. But Andrew's hand was near his hip now. Anna folded the paper back up and looked at her brother. "Why show me this? What do you want?" Jed gave her a slow, tired smile. "Come home. Cook. Help keep the land in the family. You don't belong out here, Anna. That's not how the world works." Her lip trembled. She didn't cry. "Not yet. I'm not going back." Jed shrugged. "And I guess you'll have to figure out where to sleep tonight. That wagon's not going far." The three men mounted up again, and as they rode off, Anna felt the wind change. She didn't speak, just stood there, arms stiff at her sides, heart pounding against her ribs like a fist. The sun was lower now, shadows longer. Caleb stepped beside her, quiet, steady. "They're not done," she said. "No," he replied. "They're not." She looked up at him. "I didn't ask you to stay." "I know, but you're still here." "I am." And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt something warm in her chest that wasn't fear. Not safety. Not yet. But maybe something close. Anna didn't sleep that night. She sat beneath the wagon with her knees drawn up, the rifle resting beside her and the lantern dim below. The stars above stretched wide and cold, too quiet to be comforting. Caleb had set his bedroll a little ways off. Near the fire he kept low. He didn't ask her questions, and she didn't offer answers. But his presence made it harder for the past to claw so loudly at her mind. She kept seeing her brothers' faces, especially Jed's. He had always been the one who tried to lead, even when it meant shoving everyone else down. After their mother died, Anna had been barely 16. Their father shut himself inside the barn most days, drinking and muttering about God and the war. Jed stepped in like he'd been waiting for the chance, doling out orders and shaping them into a family by force. Tom went along with it, too simple to care, and Andrew was still just a boy back then, sharp and mean in ways they hadn't understood until he got older. They never hit her, but the house always felt like it might break apart if she said the wrong thing. Her father never said her name without sighing first, and her brothers had a way of looking at her like she was supposed to be something they didn't quite trust. When she was 20, Anna had fallen in love with a hired hand who helped mend the fence one spring. His name was Mason. He was kind and quiet like Caleb. They met in the dark, whispered plans, made promises. Then he vanished one night with no note, no goodbye, just rumors that he'd taken money from Jed and disappeared. She never found out if it was true, but that's when she'd started making her own plans. Saving little coins, learning how to fix the wagon, studying maps. In the morning, Anna was already awake when Caleb stirred from his blanket. His movements were slow, careful like someone used to pain. She glanced at his leg again, the limp she'd noticed yesterday. He caught her looking, but didn't flinch. "Got in Missouri," he said quietly. "Gunshot. Military." He shook his head once. "Wrong place, wrong time." Anna nodded. That was all either of them said about it. Later that day, they started moving. Caleb rode ahead, checking the trail, and Anna kept the wagon light, avoiding ruts. They didn't talk much, but she felt the silence between them stretch into something that didn't feel empty anymore. Around midday, they came across an abandoned farmhouse. The roof had caved in, and the windows were nothing but jagged glass. But the barn still stood, weathered but firm, and there was a well beside it with cold water that tasted like iron. They decided to stop there for the night. Anna fed the mule, while Caleb cleared a spot inside the barn. As they worked, a small figure darted across the yard. Anna froze. Caleb saw it too. A child, maybe 10 or 11, dirty-faced and barefoot, with a torn shirt and eyes that had learned not to blink. She stopped just out of reach, her arms stiff at her sides. "Name's Millie," she said, voice dry from dust. "Don't got no folks." Anna stepped forward slowly. "Where are you from?" "Nowhere." Millie wouldn't say more than that, but she didn't run either. Anna gave her some of their beans and a slice of bread, and Millie ate like she hadn't had food in days. When night came, she curled up near the barn wall, away from the fire, but close enough to watch them both. Anna didn't push her. There was something in the girl's eyes she understood too well, something that had learned early not to trust anyone too much. Caleb kept glancing toward the ridge, alert even as he sat still. Anna watched him, knowing he expected her brothers to come back. She did too. Jed wouldn't give up easy, especially not after that look on his face yesterday. And if they really had control over her father's land, it meant they had control over the only piece of ground Anna had ever dreamed of owning. That night, Anna told Caleb more than she meant to. They sat near the fire, quiet, the girl already asleep. She talked about her father, how after the war he came back quieter but meaner. How her mother used to sit outside on the steps at night, humming the same hymn over and over. How after she died, the house got darker. How even though Anna had stayed, there had always been a part of her that felt like she didn't belong. "I think they blame me," she said, "for leaving, for not coming back when Pa was sick. Maybe even for Joseph." Caleb didn't try to fix it. He didn't offer comfort or kind words that would sound empty anyway. He just said, "They chose what kind of men they are. That's not on you." In the morning, Millie was still there. She helped collect wood, silent but focused, and when Caleb offered to teach her how to start a fire, she nodded once and watched closely. Anna saw how careful Caleb was with her, how he didn't raise his voice, didn't touch her without asking, like he knew what scared kids looked like maybe he'd once been one himself. Around noon, a rider came. Anna saw the shape first on the horizon, a single horse, moving slow. Caleb stood and moved in front of her without thinking. Millie vanished behind the barn. As the rider came closer, Anna's heart jumped. It wasn't her brothers. It was a woman. She looked worn thin, dust on her dress, eyes hard and sunken. She rode with a boy behind her, maybe 5 or 6, clinging to her waist. When she reached them, she stopped but didn't dismount. "You seen a man pass this way?" she asked. Caleb stepped forward. "What kind?" "Paul, red shirt, mean mouth. Took my mule. Said he'd come back for the rest." Anna glanced at Caleb. He was already scanning the trail behind her, jaw tight. "No one's passed here today," he said. The woman nodded once, then turned her horse and rode off again without another word. After she was gone, Anna looked at him. Think it's Andrew? Could be. The tension hung heavy now. They weren't alone anymore. Her brothers were circling, waiting, maybe testing how far they could push her before she snapped. Caleb knew it too. That night, they stayed inside the barn, keeping watch in turns. Millie barely slept. Neither did Anna. Every snap of a twig made her jump. Every owl call sounded too close. She found herself thinking of Mason again, wondering if he'd ever cared at all, or if her brothers had forced him out, wondering if it mattered anymore. She also wondered what Caleb's story was, what kind of pain he carried. She hadn't asked, not yet, but she could see pieces of it in how he moved, in how he listened more than he talked. By the third day, Millie had started to follow Anna closely, like a shadow. Anna didn't mind. In the girl's silence, she saw something familiar, something she used to feel when she was younger, watching her mother for signs of safety. Anna had never wanted to be anyone's protector. But looking at Millie, she felt something shift. The thought of Jed or Andrew finding the girl alone made her sick to her stomach. By late afternoon, they found a torn piece of cloth caught on a fence post. It was the same color as Jed's coat. Caleb didn't say anything. He just mounted his horse, jaw set. Anna looked at Millie and felt the first real fear crawl up her spine. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The days stretched long across the plains, marked by slow wagon wheels and cautious glances over shoulders. After the cloth on the fence post, Anna had expected her brothers to return immediately, to storm into the barn or ride her down on the open trail. But they didn't. Instead, a quiet dread settled in her chest. It was the kind of silence that came before a storm, when even the birds kept low and the air hung heavy. And yet, in the space between that fear, life carried on in strange, soft ways. Millie had taken to sleeping beside Anna now, her small body curled in a blanket near the fire. She never spoke much, but when she did, it was simple things. Asking what beans were made of, if snakes could crawl inside boots, or whether Anna had always lived in a wagon. Anna answered what she could, smiling sometimes without realizing it. There was a gentleness in tending to someone else. For so long, Anna had only been holding herself together. She didn't know what it would feel like to matter to someone again, not out of duty, but out of choice. Caleb remained steady. He kept his distance when it came to emotions, but he showed care in other ways, checking the wagon before each stretch of trail, taking the night watch even when his leg was clearly aching, catching a rabbit one morning and handing Anna the meat without saying a word. She cooked it over the fire, seasoning it with the last pinch of salt she had. For the first time in days, they ate without tension. Later that night, after Millie had fallen asleep, Anna leaned back against the wagon and looked up at the stars. Caleb sat beside her, silent, whittling a piece of wood into something that looked like the handle of a spoon. My father used to say that stars meant God was watching, Anna said, almost to herself. Caleb glanced up. And what do you think? She shrugged. I think they just make you feel small. Sometimes that's a comfort. Sometimes it ain't. He nodded. My mother said the stars were holes poked through the dark, to let the light in. Anna smiled faintly. I like that better. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her, and something in him shifted. He didn't say anything more that night, but Anna could feel the space between them change. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something with weight, something human. The next day, they came upon a river, not wide, but deep and fast from the recent rain. They stopped there to rest, letting the mule drink and washing the dust from their faces. Millie waded into the shallow part, laughing as the cold water hit her knees. Anna stood watching, one hand resting lightly on her hip, feeling something like peace. Caleb walked beside her, wiping his hands on cloth. She's starting to come back to life. She's still scared. Scared and smiling aren't the same thing, he said, but they're both worth holding on to. That night, Anna braided Millie's hair while the girl sat in front of her, unusually quiet. You think I'll ever be safe? Millie asked, not turning around. Anna's fingers hesitated for a moment. I think we're safest when we don't walk away from the people who care about us. Like you. Anna's throat tightened. I'm trying. Millie nodded, and that was all she said. But she leaned back just a little closer, resting lightly against Anna's knees. The trust was fragile, but it was there. They made camp in the open fields the next few nights, staying off main trails, moving slow but steady. The land was soft and green this time of year, and wildflowers had sprung up in small clusters. It was easy to forget what was following them until reminders came back, sharp and uninvited. At the edge of a grove, they found a carcass, fresh, torn apart by dogs or wolves. But what caught Caleb's eye wasn't the animal. It was the boot print nearby, pressed deep in the mud. Too fresh, too close, the same kind Jed wore. Anna knelt beside it, breathing shallow. They're still watching. They're waiting for the right moment, Caleb said. But why wait? He looked at her, his jaw tight. Because breaking someone slowly is more satisfying. She didn't ask how he knew that. Still, even with the shadow of danger behind them, there were moments when Anna let herself breathe. They reached an old abandoned church a few days later. Just a wooden frame, half the roof missing, but the walls still mostly upright. They stopped there to rest, and while Caleb checked the perimeter, Anna stepped inside with Millie. There were olden books scattered across the floor, pages yellowed with time. Anna picked one up and blew the dust away. Ever been in a church? She asked. Millie shook her head. What's it for? People used to come here to pray. Ask for help. Say thank you. Say goodbye. Millie looked around. Does it work? Anna ran her fingers over the splintered pew. Sometimes. They lit a small fire outside that night. It was quiet, windless. Millie dozed early. Anna sat near the fire, elbows resting on her knees, staring at the flames. She heard Caleb approach and didn't move when he sat down next to her. You believe in God? He asked softly. Anna didn't answer right away. I believe in the wind, in instincts, in not ignoring the way your stomach knots when someone walks in the room. That's not faith. It's all I've got. He nodded. Same here. There was a silence then, but it wasn't awkward. Just a pause. A breath. She looked at him. You never told me what happened. To your leg. Or anything. He shifted, then spoke quietly. My brother and I worked cattle outside of Springfield. One day, a man came through town, drunk and full of talk. So we stole something from him. Came back with a gun. I got the bullet. My brother got the grave. Anna swallowed. Was it true? No. But truth doesn't matter when someone's already angry enough to kill. Anna nodded slowly. No, it doesn't. That was the first time she reached out. She didn't touch his hand, but she rested her shoulder against his for just a second. He didn't move away. As dawn broke the next morning, Anna woke to the sound of Millie giggling. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and peeked around the side of the wagon. Caleb was standing near the edge of the trees, holding a stick and poking it toward a log where two curious squirrels had crept out. Millie stood beside him, covering her mouth with both hands, trying not to laugh too loudly. Anna smiled. It was the first time she had smiled with her whole face in what felt like years. But joy was a risky thing. It made you forget the sharp edges waiting just beyond the next hill. Later that day, they reached the edge of Canyon Pass. It was narrow and slow to navigate, with loose gravel and high walls on both sides. Caleb paused at the entrance, his brow furrowed. It's a good place for an ambush, he said. Anna's stomach twisted. Do we have a choice? No. So they moved slow. Caleb led the mule, one hand always near his sidearm. Anna walked beside Millie, eyes darting at every shift of wind or falling rock. They made it through. But near the end of the pass, Caleb found another sign, 2 cigarette butts still warm. Anna stared at them. They're not trying to hide anymore. Caleb looked at her. They want you to know they're close. That night, Anna didn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the wind, wondering how long they could keep ahead, wondering if it was worth it, wondering if maybe, just maybe, they could keep going forever if they stay together. Caleb sat near the fire, eyes closed but not asleep. He felt her looking and opened them. "You okay?" "No." He nodded. "Me neither." She stood and walked over, sitting down beside him. Millie shifted in her sleep, but didn't wake. "Do you think people like us ever really get free?" Anna asked. Caleb looked at her. "I don't know, but I think it's worth trying." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm tired of trying alone." "You're not alone anymore." That was the first time she believed it. Even with her brothers out there, even with the fear rising again, Anna felt something stronger underneath it all. Not hope in a wide sense, not the kind that changed the world, but something close. The kind that made her want to keep moving forward one day at a time. They camped just beyond the canyon, near a grove of twisted junipers that leaned like old men against the wind. The sun had gone down bloody, staining the sky in streaks of red and gold. And by the time night fell, the fire was little more than a circle of soft orange light in the dark. Anna sat a little apart from Caleb and Millie, her knees pulled tight to her chest, her mind stuck on things she couldn't outrun. She'd come so far. Too far, maybe, but her past still breathed hot against her neck, like something just behind her shoulder. She kept thinking of her father, not the hollowed, fading man in his final years, but the version of him who stood tall in her childhood, whose anger could light a room faster than any lantern. He wasn't always cruel. Sometimes he'd lift her high onto his shoulders and call her his smart little girl. But something in him had cracked after the war. She never knew what he saw out there, only that he brought it home and let it rot the family from the inside out. Her mother bore it the longest. Anna bore it next. And when it became too much, she stopped trying to fix things and began planning her escape. That guilt haunted her more than she liked to admit. She hadn't been there at the end, hadn't written, hadn't sent a single word back. And now, knowing he'd signed away her land, knowing Jed had waited until Pa's body was cold to twist a knife, it all sat heavy in her chest. Like maybe they were right. Maybe she did deserve to lose everything. She didn't realize Caleb had sat down beside her until he handed her a tin cup of warm tea. She took it without a word, grateful for the heat. "You've been quiet," he said softly. "I'm trying to think," she answered, not quite meeting his eyes. "What about? If it was worth it," she murmured. "Running. Starting over. Leaving them." Caleb looked toward the fire, where Millie was asleep, curled under Anna's old blanket. "You think staying would have ended different?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I could have done it better. Kept the land. Kept something. I thought if I just got far enough away, I could start clean, but they keep pulling me back. That's what fear does. It tells you everything that went wrong is your fault. Makes you forget what broke you in the first place." She looked at him then, the raw edge in his voice making her stomach twist. "You know something about that?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "The night my brother died, I could have fought harder. Could have stopped the man before he raised a gun. I froze. I never had before. But I did that time." Anna whispered, "It wasn't your fault." He turned to her. "It wasn't yours either. But the thing about guilt is that logic doesn't always chase it away." She nodded, but the ache stayed. Some wounds lived too deep in the soul to be reasoned with. The next morning, Millie woke with a fever. Not high, but enough to make her whimper and cling to Anna's arm. Anna pressed her hand to the girl's forehead and swallowed hard. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Caleb examined Millie with gentle hands. "Could be the water, or the berries she found yesterday." They decided to stay put for the day, giving Millie rest and boiling clean water from a nearby spring. But Anna couldn't shake the panic. What if it got worse? What if she couldn't protect the one person who'd come to trust her? As the sun climbed, Millie slept on and off, her face flushed. Anna dipped a cloth into the cool water and kept it pressed to the girl's forehead, her hands shaking. Caleb brought more firewood, keeping quiet, respecting the edge Anna stood on. Sometime in the afternoon, a shadow crossed the clearing. Not a rider this time, a man on foot. Anna's breath caught. Caleb was already moving, stepping between her and the stranger. The man raised his hand slowly. "Don't shoot. I'm just looking for my brother's horse." wandered off 2 nights back. Anna narrowed her eyes. What's your brother's name? Henry. Ranch hand out near the sweetgrass line. You seen a chestnut mare, white stripe down the face. They hadn't. The man lingered, eyes shifting between Anna, Caleb, and the sick child on the ground. Something about his gaze made Anna cold. Caleb didn't take his hand off the gun. You've asked. Now move along. The man didn't argue. He nodded and turned, but Anna saw the glance he cast toward the wagon as he left. Too curious. Too long. When he was gone, Caleb muttered, He'll tell someone. Jed. Maybe. The fears settled again like dust. And this time it didn't lift. That night, Millie's fever broke just before dawn. Anna had stayed awake all night again, the cloth in her hand, her eyes aching from strain and worry. When Millie opened her eyes and whispered her name, Anna broke down. Not loud, not wild, just silent tears running down her cheeks as she leaned over and hugged the girl close. She's going to be okay, Caleb said gently, placing a hand on her back. Anna nodded, but the truth was she didn't feel okay. She didn't feel strong. She didn't feel brave. She felt like a woman too far from home, running from a past that had horses faster than hers. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Millie regained her strength. Caleb pushed them harder, waking early and moving fast, try to put more distance between them and whatever eyes might have seen their camp. But the trail narrowed again, winding through rocky hills that slowed the wagon. It was on the second evening that Anna snapped. She and Caleb were trying to push the wagon out of a rut when the wheel jerked, catching her foot. She stumbled back and fell hard onto the ground. The impact knocked the air from her chest. Caleb rushed to help her, but she shoved his hands away. Don't, she gasped angry. Don't help me. Just leave me a second. He backed up, startled. Millie came running, but Anna waved her off too. She stood slowly, brushing dirt from her skirt. It's always like this. One thing after another. Always waiting for the next piece to fall apart. Caleb spoke carefully. We'll get fixed. We've come this far. I don't care how far we've come, she snapped, turning on him. I'm tired, Caleb. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending this is going to end well. The silence that followed was thick. Then she whispered, What if they catch us? What if Millie gets hurt? What if I'm not enough? Caleb took a step forward, but not too close. I'm scared too, he said, but we can't stop now. Anna stared at him, her chest heaving. What if I do? He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, Then I'll carry the weight until you can walk again. She turned away from him and sat hard on a nearby rock, burying her face in her hands. Millie hovered near the wagon, watching from a distance. Caleb left her alone that night. He kept watch from a few feet away, letting her come back to herself without pushing. She sat in silence until the stars returned and the fire burned low. Then she whispered to the dark, not sure if he'd hear, I don't know how to love someone right. I don't know how to be safe. His answer came a few seconds later. Me neither. And that, somehow, made her feel less broken. The next morning, she found Millie watching her with wide eyes. Are we still going? The girl asked. Anna nodded slowly. Yeah, we are. Millie didn't ask anything more. She simply walked over and held her hand out. Anna took it. As they moved forward that day, the road ahead didn't look any less dangerous. But Anna began to understand something. Running hadn't freed her, but facing it, walking toward whatever weight it might. Still, she carried her fears with her. What if Jed came with a rifle? What if the land she dreamed of was truly gone? What if Caleb left, like Mason once had? But for the first time in her life, Anna realized those fears didn't have to define her. They could live in her heart without ruling it. And maybe, just maybe, she could build something new out of all the broken pieces. Even if it hurt. Even if it took everything she had. They reached the edge of Pine Hollow by late afternoon, the sun low behind the hills and painting the dust in gold. From the rise, Anna could see the jagged silhouette of the ranch she'd once dreamed of owning, now half covered in weeds and broken fencing. Her father's house sat like a carcass, bones intact but skin rotted through. She hadn't seen it in 3 years, not since she'd walked away one cold spring morning with nothing but a canvas bag and a mouth full of bitterness. Her stomach turned as she looked down at the land. It wasn't just dirt and wood. It was everything she'd once believed could save her. And it had betrayed her. Or maybe she had betrayed it. Maybe both were true. Caleb stood beside her, silent but watchful, his eyes scanning the fields, the road, the tree line. He'd known this was coming. Knew they were too close now for the brothers not to make a move. Anna turned toward Millie, who stood at the edge of the trail, picking at the strap of her dress. "I want you to stay here," Anna said softly. "If anything happens, you run. You don't look back." Millie's brow furrowed. "You're going down there?" "I have to. I'm coming too." Anna crouched to meet her eyes. "Not this time. Not until I say it's safe." The girl hesitated, then nodded slowly. Anna placed a kiss on her forehead and stood. As she and Caleb made their way down the hill, her heart pounded like a drum in her throat. Every step kicked up the dust of old memories. Her mother humming in the kitchen, Joseph tossing her in a hay bales, her father shouting from the porch. She remembered laughing in that field once. It felt like someone else's life now. The wind picked up as they reached the broken gate. The barn was still standing, though the doors hung crooked on their hinges. The front porch creaked as they stepped on it. Anna's hand hovered near her side, over the small pistol tucked beneath her skirt. Caleb was tense. He kept glancing at the shadows. Then a voice rang out, low and hard. "Well, look who finally came home." Jed stepped out of the barn, flanked by Tom and Andrew. All three were the same tight smiles, the kind that didn't reach the eyes. Anna could see it in their stance. They weren't here to talk. They were here to win. "Thought you'd keep running forever," Tom said, picking dirt from under his nails with a knife. "I wasn't running," Anna said evenly. "I was surviving." Jed smirked. "By taking off with our land, it was never yours to begin with." Jed held up the deed again, the same one he'd shoved in her face the last time. "Says otherwise." Anna stepped forward, her voice steady. "You think a piece of paper makes you right? You think signing Pa's name on something while he lay dying gives you a claim to my life?" "It gives me the land," Jed said, "and it gives me the right to decide who steps foot on it." Caleb moved closer to Anna's side, saying nothing, but his presence was solid as stone. Andrew cocked his head. "Who's your new guard dog?" "No one," Anna said. "He's with me. That's all you need to know." "You always needed someone," Jed muttered. "Mama, Joseph, Mason, now this one. You never did learn how to stand on your own." Anna's jaw clenched. "I stood on my own every day after I left. I built a plan. I made it across hundreds of miles of nothing with a broken wagon and a sick child." Tom scoffed. "That brat yours." "No, but she's safer with me than she'd ever be with you." Jed took a step closer. "You think you've changed, Anna. You think walking away made you better. But you're still the same little girl crying in the barn after Pa yelled at you." Something inside her cracked then, not in the way it used to, not in a collapse. It cracked open. "You're right," she said. "I was that girl. I was scared. I was broken. But I'm not her anymore." Jed's mouth twisted. "You're still nothing without this land." "I don't need the land," she said. "I wanted it. I wanted something of my own. But what I need is to stop carrying the weight of all of you." Tom moved first. A sudden step forward, a hand twitching toward his belt. But Caleb was faster, his rifle drawn, steady in both hands. "Don't," he said, calm but cold. Andrew hesitated, his fingers twitching at his side. "You shoot us," Jed said. "You'll spend the rest of your life running." "No," Caleb said, voice sharp. "I won't. Not if it's for the right reasons." Jed's eyes met Anna's again, and something ugly simmered just beneath his skin. "You left," he said, quieter now. "You left us to clean up the mess. You think we were fine? Pa drank more. Mama died faster. And we had to keep going." Anna shook her head. "You kept going by turning cruel. That wasn't survival. That was choice." Jed stepped back. So what now? You gonna shoot us and plant flowers in the ashes? No, Anna said. I'm walking away. I came back to see it, to say goodbye, but I'm not staying, and you won't follow me again. If you do, you'll answer to the law, or to something worse. She turned, stepped off the porch. Caleb backed up with her, rifles still raised until they were well past the barn. None of the brothers followed. When they reached the rise again, Anna felt her knees tremble. Not from fear, but from something else. Relief. Millie ran to her, arms thrown around her waist. Anna dropped to her knees and held her tightly. You're okay, the girl whispered. Anna closed her eyes. We're okay. That night, they camped far from the house, deeper into the trees. The wind shifted as they set the fire, and it no longer felt like it was pushing them back. It felt like it was carrying them forward. Caleb sat beside her, his arm brushing hers. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Anna said, I always thought I was afraid of them, of what they do, but it was me I was scared of. Caleb glanced over. What do you mean? I was afraid that they were right, that I was weak, that I needed them. That leaving made me selfish. And now I know better. He nodded. You were brave, Anna. She looked at him. So were you. He smiled, tired but real. Where to next? She looked at Millie, curled up near the fire. Then toward the dark horizon. Somewhere new, she said. Somewhere we build from scratch. Together? Anna nodded. Yeah, together. And that night, as the fire cracked and the stars blinked silently above, Anna finally let herself believe in something she'd buried long ago. A second chance, not just to survive, but to live. The morning air was cool and still, the kind that whispered of change instead of warning. Dew clung to the grass as the wagon rolled gently through a narrow valley where the hills opened up in as soft, golden fields. Anna sat at the front, hands loose on the reins, while Millie leaned against her side, half asleep, her head nestled beneath Anna's arm. Behind them, Caleb rode his horse close, his eyes sweeping the landscape, not in fear now, but in thought. They hadn't spoken much since leaving the old homestead 2 days earlier. There hadn't been a need to. Something had shifted between them that day. Something quieter than love, but stronger than safety. Anna no longer flinched when she heard a snapping branch. Millie no longer asked if someone might come looking for them. And Caleb no longer kept one hand always near his rifle. They were free now, not just from Jed or Andrew or the papers forged in a dying man's name, but from the old weight that used to wrap around their ribs like barbed wire. The weight of proving something, of looking over shoulders, of questioning their worth. They came across an abandoned claim near a stream, marked by an old stone chimney and a patch of green that looked good for planting. Anna climbed down and walked the edge of the clearing slowly, testing the earth with her boots, watching how the light fell through the trees. The wind moved gently through the tall grass like it was breathing. Caleb came up behind her. You thinking what I'm thinking? Anna looked at the chimney, then at him. I think I'm tired of thinking. I want to build. He smiled. Then let's build. They spent that afternoon gathering what they could from the woods. Loose timber, wild roots, and a rusty shovel half buried beneath the soil. Millie helped, quiet but curious, her small hands reaching for every nail or rock that might come in handy. At one point, she looked up and asked, Will we live here forever? Anna paused, brushing dirt from her hands. I don't know, but we'll live here now. And for Millie, that was enough. She smiled and ran off to gather more kindling. That evening, as the sky turned lavender and the fire popped beside the stone chimney, Anna sat beside Caleb and handed him a mug of warm tea. They didn't talk for a long while. The silence wasn't empty. It was calm. Eventually, Anna leaned her head against his shoulder. I used to think love had to come fast, she said. All heart and heat. Then I learned it could also come quiet. Like this. Caleb turned his head slightly, his breath warm near her temple. Quiet doesn't mean small. This, whatever it is, we earned it. She nodded. Yeah, we did. His hand found hers, their fingers locking in a way that felt easy. Familiar, right? They didn't need promises. They didn't need vows. What they had was enough. Wounds would heal slower than words, but they'd heal all the same. Day by day, together, Millie drifted off to sleep in a bundle of blankets not far from the fire, her face peaceful in a way Anna hadn't seen before. She watched the girl for a long time, something in her chest settling deeper than it ever had. Later that night, under a sky full of stars, Anna and Caleb lay beneath the wagon canvas, their bodies close but unhurried. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It wasn't tangled with fear. It was careful, unspoken, honest. Every touch a question, every breath an answer. When the night grew colder, Caleb pulled the blanket up over them and wrapped his arm around her. She rested her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady against her palm. "We'll build something here," she whispered, half asleep. "Something that lasts." Caleb kissed her hair and held her closer. "You already started," he said. By dawn, the first beam of sunlight fell through the leaves and painted the grass gold again. Anna stepped out from beneath the wagon, barefoot, watching the light rise with quiet awe. It didn't feel like running anymore. It didn't feel like surviving. It felt like home.